Hi everybody, it's Chris Ernick here. Today I am introducing you to the iGuide camera. I'm going to walk you through the basic steps of how to use it and show you just how great this camera is and what it can do for you to help you sell property. So if you've just picked up your iGuide camera from the 2% Pro office, you're borrowing it to shoot a property, here's what you should have in your possession now. You should have this case here, which contains the iGuide camera. You should have the controlling iPad that's in this nice sling bag here, and you should have also picked up a tripod. You're going to need a tripod to shoot a virtual tour with this camera. Make sure you've got all three of these components before you leave to shoot your property. Opening up the case here, the exciting part. This is our iGuide camera. What you should find inside of this case, first and foremost, this is the precious super duper iGuide camera. It does have a lens cap on the front. Make sure that when you get it, it has the lens cap on, and make sure that when you return it, that lens cap is back in place, okay? Also inside of the iGuide camera case, you will find a charger for the camera battery, okay? This is a battery that comes out of the camera, and you're gonna have to charge this the night before if you haven't picked it up charged from the office, okay? This is specifically for the camera. Now there is a control system on board of this camera that does need to be charged separately, okay? This is the control system that controls the camera and does all of the laser measurements. There's another charger in here, okay? So two chargers in the case. One that controls the camera control system, okay? That's gonna plug in on the bottom right there, and another one that charges the camera battery, okay? This is the battery that pops out of the camera. So inside of this case, you've got two chargers, you've got the camera, one charger for the camera battery, and one charger that plugs in directly right there to charge the camera control system. All right, so the anatomy of the iGuide camera. Now when you pull it out of the case, this is an expensive camera. Grasp it firmly, keep a tight grip on it. You do not want to drop this, okay? This is our baby. I'm gonna take you through some of the parts of the camera. It's got four major components. The most obvious component, it's got a standard Canon SLR camera as part of the system. Now that's gonna be pretty obvious to most of us. We're gonna recognize that camera. It's got three other components. On the top, you can see the orange hat here. This is the LIDAR system. It's the laser measurement system. What that does is it's shooting lasers out all over the place, and it's recording the distance to everything all around you all at once. So it's a laser that's spinning around and taking laser measurements in every direction, hundreds and hundreds of times per second, okay? Up top, that's our laser measurement device. It's also called a LIDAR device, okay? On your right-hand side, left if I'm behind it, you'll see on this side we've got a battery. The battery has an indicator at the top, just bars, tells you just how full that battery is. Hopefully when you pick it up from the office, it's all the way full. Remember, there is a charger in the case. You charge that battery at the bottom. This is the battery that's gonna power the control system and the laser. The camera does have its own battery that needs to be charged separately. Okay, and as I mentioned over here on my right side, on your left, right here, this is the control system, okay? There's a little computer in there that's controlling the camera, it's controlling the laser, and it's getting power from the battery, okay? These components work together so that we can shoot a virtual tour and laser measure every millimeter of a property all at once. A couple things that might be obvious, I just want to mention quickly. Your camera lens, you don't want to be touching that. You don't want greasy fingerprints on there. If there's dust on there, you want to use a microfiber cloth to clean that off. You don't want to be using cotton or your shirt, okay? There should be a microfiber cloth in the case to clean that off. I'm also going to mention a little bit less obvious, the LIDAR system, all of that black plastic that you see, it looks opaque, but that's actually a lens that the laser shoots out of. So just the same, you never want to be touching this part of the camera. And if you do get greasy fingerprints all over it, a microfiber optical cloth only to clean. One more thing, when you pick up the camera, on the bottom here, you're going to see that there's a thumb drive plugged in. That's where all of the data, all of your measurements and all of your pictures go. You're not going to have to worry about this thumb drive till it comes time to upload your virtual tour to the system. But when you pick up and when you return the camera, you want to make sure that that thumb drive is inserted into the bottom of the camera. It just plugs into a little USB port there. You'll see on this particular thumb drive, it says 16 gigabytes. If you see that right on the bottom, rest assured the thumb drive is included in the system and it should be returned to that slot when you return the camera. When you pick up the camera, it should be there. Let's get to work. Let's start filming our virtual tour and getting our property measurements at the same time. We're going to start by opening up our tripod. Now we're going to want our camera to sit about 4 feet off the ground. We're going to extend the middle leg of this tripod. Now it's got 3 legs. We don't need to be that high, so we're just extending that one middle leg. Okay, you can see we're getting to that middle snap, extending that middle leg. All right, now we've got a nice sturdy base. If you notice on the front of this tripod, there's a thumb screw. When you loosen off that thumb screw, you can lift up the center column. Remember to tighten that thumb screw up. Tighten it up good. Now we've got a platform that's going to hold this camera up about 4 feet off of the ground. Okay, going to mount our camera to that tripod. Now remember, when we're pulling this out of the box, we're grasping it by the mounting pillar there, that really solid piece of metal. We're holding it firmly. Now what you can do is you can just move it. And I don't know if you can see, there's a little knurled ring there. You can turn that with your thumbs, turn it clockwise. You'll feel it tightening onto the tripod there. Make sure you're holding that camera firmly until you can feel that it's tightened onto the tripod very well, okay? Double check that it's well tightened onto the tripod. Now we're ready to get up and get going. Right. One adjustment before we start shooting, have your tape measure handy. Remember I told you we want the camera to be 4 feet off of the ground. We've pulled that center column all the way up and it's gonna be a little bit higher than 4 feet. So what we're gonna do, I can see I need to bring my camera down. I need to bring it down approximately 6 inches to get to that 4 feet. So just gonna loosen that little center column knob on the front while I'm holding the camera, and I'm just gonna lower it down. Now you're gonna get best results when your camera sits about 4 feet off the ground. It doesn't need to be exact, but 4 feet or maybe plus an inch or 2 is fine, okay? So I've got 4.3 inches. I'm just gonna come down another 1.5 inches. There we go, okay? Tightening up that thumb screw. Now I'm 4 feet, camera is 4 feet off the ground. It's exactly where I want it to be to start shooting a virtual tour. All right, let's get everything powered up so that we're ready to start recording. There's 3 things we need to power up. Now the first thing is the main iGuide control unit. It's got a little button on the top. When you hit it, I don't know if you can see, there's an orange light on the top telling you that it's powered up. That's the first thing to power up. It doesn't matter what order you power this up in, but remember there's 3 things to power up. The next thing is your camera. The knob on the top, it's gonna be in the off position. You're gonna turn it till it's at the M for manual. So we've set this camera to manual and now it's gonna turn on. It's gonna stay in manual, and that's actually the only thing we need to do with this camera is turn it on to manual, because the iGuide control board is gonna control the camera from here on out. The third thing that we need to power up is our iPad. So remember that when you picked up the camera, you got this sling bag. Inside is your iPad that's gonna connect with this system and allow you to control the system. It's got a nice neck strap on it. It's got a comfy hand strap on it. Go ahead, put that around your neck so that you don't drop it, and hit the power button on the top right-hand side, okay? So you're gonna power up your iPad. Now, with your camera on and your iGuide control system on, you can see the lights green now. What's gonna happen is your iPad is gonna automatically connect to the camera by Wi-Fi, okay? So the iPad thinks that it's connecting to a Wi-Fi hotspot. And that hotspot, if you want to go into your iPad, if you want to open up Wi-Fi from the top right-hand corner, we'll double check that Wi-Fi is on, and it says it's connected. It's connected very quickly automatically to what it's found. It's called it Planetar A24BB. Just look for a Wi-Fi address called Planetar. It should be automatically connected. If it doesn't connect automatically, the password for that Wi-Fi, there's a sticker on the bottom of the camera. It's P12345667. This should all happen automatically. You power on the camera, you power on the control unit, and you power on the iPad, and you'll find that it's connected itself all automatically. Now we're ready to begin shooting. Right, we've got our camera powered on in two places, the control unit, and also the camera is turned on to manual. We've got our iPad turned on, and we've got it connected to the Wi-Fi so that the iPad is talking to the virtual tour camera. We'll now have a look at the screen here. We're gonna open the IM-S5 survey app. Click on that there. Now, funny thing about this software, it's always going to open up in the last project that somebody was working on. You're starting a new project, so look at the bottom of your screen and hit the project tab. Now it's going to ask you to enter a name for the project. I suggest that you put the address of the property you're working on, and it's going to ask you to put the exterior wall thickness. That's because when we're measuring the inside of this property, if it's a detached property, we're gonna have to know how thick those outside walls are so that we can get a measurement that includes the exterior of the property. Okay, so go ahead and put the project name in, the address, and I'm gonna show you where to measure the exterior wall thickness. So here I am at the front door. This is a convenient place to measure the exterior wall thickness. You're gonna have to bring a tape measure with you. Remember, first we measured to make sure that our camera was 4 feet off the ground. Now we're measuring how thick these exterior walls are. Now, you don't want to be measuring the siding and all the extra trim that's around the door. Same thing on the inside, there's a little bit of trim. So you kind of want to eyeball around this piece of trim and be like, how thick is the wall actually? And right here, this is pretty standard. On a newer home, I've got 7.5 inches as my exterior wall width. Now I just created a new project. I'm going to input 7.5 inches as a wall width, and I'm going to input the address as the project name. Right after we input the project name and the wall thickness, we're going to move over to the floor tab. It'll happen automatically. You can see there's a place where you can type in the floor name. It'll also allow you to just choose main floor. We're starting on the main floor. So type in main, type in whatever you want, or just choose from the selected list like main or first or second. Again, we have to input the wall thickness. On this one, it was 7.5. We're entering that in for the second time. And there's a section to set the grade level. Now what we're choosing, because I'm on the main, I'm choosing above grade. You just click on that button and it'll toggle between above grade and below grade. The reason for this is when we're doing a finished basement, we want to make sure that when we create that floor, it's toggled to below grade, and that'll make sure that our measurements take into account to include the above grade areas, but not to include the below grade basement area for calculating the total. Okay, so now we've set our floor to main floor, 7.5 inches our exterior wall width, and it is above grade, and we're just going to hit that blue create button. And now here we are, we're in the operating screen where we're going to start doing this survey. Okay, right before we start our survey, in other words, before we start shooting our virtual tour, there's a couple settings I want you to double check that they're correct. Now, when we're shooting the virtual tour, there's two things this camera is doing. Each spot that we plunk it down, we're going to take a 360-degree panorama picture. At the same time, the laser, the LIDAR at the top is going to be measuring the shape of the room. Okay? When we move through this house and we do this all these different spots, we take the panorama pictures and we get like a little jigsaw-shaped piece of a puzzle, and that's the shape of the walls in that room. Now what's going to happen is all those jigsaw pieces have to fit together. Okay, that's how we get a floor plan of the property. So two things that I want to make sure that our settings are correct. Regarding the camera for the 360 photos, I want you to make sure that if you're inside, you can see where it says HDR indoor, it might say HDR outdoor, might say HDR beach. You want to choose the appropriate one. Now usually we're shooting these panorama photos inside, so we're going to choose HDR indoor. Okay, there's also a little slide toggle. It says auto exposure. You want to make sure that one is turned on. Okay, two things that we want to do with the laser. First, another slide toggle, we want to make sure to turn it on. And then I want you to notice that there's two modes that the laser can be in. It can be in what's called track mode, and it can also be in what's called auto map mode. Okay, Now, when it's in track mode, as we move around the property, it's going to keep track of where the camera is in relation to those jigsaw pieces of the floor plan that it's already made. Now, there's an optional mode that's called auto map, and what auto map does is it allows us, before we even start shooting the virtual tour, before we take any photos, we can just walk around with the laser on, and it will do its best to build an entire map out of the property, so that later, as we get those individual jigsaw pieces associated with each panorama, we get the panorama, the 360 photo, and we also get the jigsaw piece of what the laser can see. Now, because we've done an auto map beforehand, it can more easily automatically figure out how those jigsaw pieces fit into the overall picture, okay? So it's an optional step, but one thing I like to do before I start shooting the panoramas and getting the little individual jigsaw pieces of the floor plan, I like to put it into auto map mode and walk around and let the camera make a map of the floor that I'm on. What I find is start doing the auto mapping. Now remember, this is an optional step. It's a step I like to do so that all of my little jigsaw pieces of floor plan fit together automatically. Now don't worry, if you don't do this step and your pieces are not fitting together on site, you can fix it once you get in front of your computer when you're doing the post-processing. But if you choose to take a few minutes to do one of these auto maps, I think it's going to help you a lot in making a lot of the floor planning, a lot of the measuring go automatically, okay? Now, one of the things we're going to do before we start shooting, this is a little counterintuitive, when we shoot photos, we go around and we turn on all of the lights and we open all of the blinds, we get as much light in as possible. When we're doing an auto map, and only if you're doing an auto map, I'm going to suggest that you close any blinds or curtains if you can, and the reason for that is it's going to help your laser measurer, it's going to help your iGuide camera know where the walls are. Otherwise it shoots lasers right out the window, okay? That's not a big problem. You know, sometimes you don't have curtains, that's okay. But if you can, it's just one step that's going to help you get a better result right off the bat. So for me, I like to close these blinds, make sure all of my lights are on, and then another thing I'm going to do before mapping a property is I'm going to make sure that any closets, any big closets are open. Okay, an ordinary closet like this you could leave closed, especially if it was full, but if it's empty like that one is, I'm going to leave it open. That's going to help the iGuide camera get a really good map and really understand how the spaces relate to each other, okay? Now it is mandatory if you have a big closet, like a walk-in closet, or in this case a corner pantry, it is mandatory that you do open that up, okay? Your camera is going to have to be able to get the laser in there to have a good look at it. All right, I'm going to take you through the auto mapping and show you what it looks like on your screen. Starting the auto map, now I'm going to make sure that I turn on the laser. Remember, there's that toggle switch to turn on the laser. Okay, it's probably going to go into tracking mode. That's so that it knows where it is on the map. We don't have a map yet, so we're going to switch that mode where it says track. We're going to touch that and it's going to toggle to auto mapping mode, okay? See on the screen there how now we have a map, kind of like a floor plan of where we are. I'm going to lift up the camera, okay, by that center column. Now you may want to just kick a couple of these legs in a bit so that you can move around. Now, watch what happens. I like to start in the biggest, least complicated room, okay? And you're just going to walk slowly through the property. Have a look at the screen, how it's building a map. Now, your laser is shooting almost 360 degrees. It doesn't shoot behind it, so you are actually, when you're walking around, you're kind of in a shadow. That's the one area where it doesn't shoot lasers. So try to keep your camera, the lens pointing forward, and you're going to get the most coverage. Now what I do, as I go into small areas like a bathroom or a hallway, I'll often walk backwards, okay? The reason for that, I'm pointing the laser. Remember there's an area at the back where there's no lasers. I'm pointing most of the lasers where it's already been. That helps the computer know, it helps it figure out where we're going, because it's just adding little bits. If I were to spin around right now and face into a completely new area, the computer might not have enough context to know how it connects to where we've been, okay? So the concept in my mind is whenever I'm really entering a new area, I want the laser to see as much of where it has already been and just a little bit about where we're going. Okay, and that's how it's going to build the map. As we're building the map, you'll notice that the new areas of the map, they're outlined in green. What the green means, it means that the computer is very happy. It's saying this makes total sense to me. If you see that all turn red, that means that it's getting confused. All right, if it's getting confused, all you want to do is back up, just go in reverse, go back to where you were, and then the computer should be able to figure out where the camera is in relation to the walls again, okay? But as long as you see green, you can just keep walking slowly through the property. Try to do the big square rooms first. The computer can get confused on little rooms and rooms with mirrors, okay? So closets and bathrooms, you may want to think about adding those last as you tour through the property, okay? So the screen just turned a little bit red there. That's because I'm going into a pantry, and all I did, I just backed up a little bit and then it figured it out, okay? I'm watching my screen here and I'm seeing that, oh, we've almost built the whole map. The last place that I'm gonna map here is the bathroom, okay? Now, it can easily get confused in a bathroom because it's a small space and it has a mirror. Just like a window, a mirror is gonna reflect that laser and confuse it. So I'm backing into the bathroom. It's not seeing very much of the mirror. Now I'm slowly letting it learn about the walls, okay? I'm not gonna avoid the mirror, but if you look on the screen, you can see that it's got some artifacts. It thinks that the wall goes out much further than it does. That's okay, that'll be fixed in post-production. The only area that we haven't got yet is just this little area. That's the stairs, okay? So one thing you can do, you can kind of hold it up, get that area there. Okay, and one thing that I should have done when I was opening all the closet doors is I should have opened this basement door so that the laser would be able to poke down there. I'm gonna do that now. Open this door all the way. Okay. Now, you probably can't see my screen, but it's gone very red. Now it's confused. Things are not where it expects them to be. So I'm just moving back into this big room. Okay, now it sees the walls that it knows. Now it's pretty sure where it is. Everything's green again. And now I'm just very slowly gonna introduce it to this new area that's the stairwell. Okay, just turning it a little bit so that it can see where it's been. If you find that it keeps going red, just try to move very slowly. Let it learn this new area and let it see how this new area fits into the old area. Okay, I've got a good scan in there now. Gonna back up slowly out of that area. Back to the kitchen that it knows. Okay, and the only thing that we have, I can see a white area. I can see the whole area is mapped now. The only thing is where the fridge is, okay? And that's gonna be easy. Things like appliances and cabinets, it's not gonna be able to scan there. Those are in the way. So just expect those to be fixed in post-production. Okay, that's an auto map. And I'm gonna show you on my screen how we built a really nice floor plan and how that's really gonna make the process go much smoother when we start shooting the panoramas. Okay, so I'm still doing my auto map and something has happened. The camera has got hopelessly lost. So the outline of the walls that it's currently scanning, what should be green on my screen is red. And it's misaligned with the map that I've already made. I can see that. And I've tried backing up to a space that the camera already knows and it didn't help. So there is still a fix for this. And the way that you can fix it, if you look at your screen, you'll notice that there's two move buttons. There's a move button for moving the scan. Okay, so that's moving the scan to the template of the floor plate that you've already laid out so that the computer knows where it is. So you can also move the scan that's already done, that's part of a panel. We're gonna talk about that when we start shooting the panoramas. Right now, if you look at my screen, I need to move this scan because it's not self-correcting. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the move button under scan. Okay, now with my finger on the screen, you can see I'm dragging that current scan that was red, I'm dragging that around, and with two fingers, I can actually rotate it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna fit it right to where I can see that it belongs. Okay, just rotate it a little bit more. Get it really close, okay? And then I'm gonna hit the move button, turn to save. Okay, look at that. It turned green, and now we're back in green again. Now we can walk around, it knows where we are. So that's a good skill to know, is that if if what you're currently scanning isn't matching up with what's already on your screen, you can hit the move button under scan and you can move the current scan so that it fits in with the rest of the map. Okay, just a little tip there to recover when things seem to be going hopelessly wrong. Never worry, because any of these errors, you can fix them all when you're putting the virtual tour together at home on your computer. But the more that you can get right while you're on site, the easier it's going to be when you get home, the less homework you're going to have. I'm about to start shooting the panel, so what I'm doing, I'm turning on all of the lights. I'm closing those closet doors that I opened earlier, and I'm making sure that all the blinds are open. Okay, another thing that I've done is I've hidden my shoes and I've hidden the camera case either in a closet or outside on the front step so that they're not in the shot. Okay, that's always a bummer when you get home and you're realizing that all your photos have your camera case in it. Okay, so I'm ready to go. All my lights are on, all my blinds are open, and there's no clutter laying around that I don't want in the photo. So I'm ready. I'm gonna start shooting the virtual tour now. I've done my auto map for this floor. So I'm gonna reach down, and the mode where it says auto map, I'm gonna touch that and I'm gonna turn it to track. Just touching it will toggle it to track. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that my laser is on. Since I'm indoor, I'm gonna make sure that my camera is set to HDR indoor, that I've got auto exposure. And also, you'll notice on the far left, there's another place to make sure that you've got auto white balance. I recommend that you set that to auto, okay? Now I'm gonna move through the property taking panoramas. We're gonna have a spot here, probably a spot in the middle of this room. You just imagine, you've all seen virtual tours. Now what you're gonna do is move so that from each spot you can see the next spot. Now how this works on this screen, you'll notice there's a +1 button. It says +1, notice that? I'm hitting that right now. And now what we've done is we've started a new panorama. A panorama is gonna take 3 shots and combine that into a 360-degree photo, okay? In the top right-hand corner, you'll see this little minimize button. Minimize that map so that you can actually see what we're shooting now. Make sure that you take your lens cap off, keep that in your pocket, keep it somewhere safe. All right, now on your screen, there is a camera button. It's got a little picture of a camera. That's the one that you're gonna hit to start your picture. Okay, I'm gonna familiarize you with one thing that we're gonna be doing before we shoot. You'll notice that as you turn the camera, just use a light touch, your fingers on the camera body, you'll feel it click into place, okay? It doesn't move, and then you gotta give it a little bit more of a push and it clicks. There's 3 spots as we move around where it will lock into place, okay? Those are the 3 directions that we're gonna take a picture in, okay? So here's the first one. I've got it locked into place. I just give it a little wiggle with my finger, make sure it's locked into place. And then I hit that button on the screen that looks like a camera, okay? Don't hit the one that looks like a shutter. That one is for taking just one picture, not a panorama. Okay, now you hear it just took 3 shots. Remember, we're doing HDR, so it overexposed a shot, it underexposed a shot, and it made a normally exposed shot. Already it's combined all of those shots into an HDR photo that looks great. We can see out the windows, there's no shadows, there's no spots that are too bright, okay? But you can see it's only got 1 of those 3 done. The next step, now that you see that come up on the screen, you're just gonna lightly touch the bottom of the camera. You're gonna turn it clockwise. Remember to always turn clockwise. Turn the camera into the next stop. You'll feel it stop and then it doesn't move. Okay, give it a little wiggle. Now you're in the right spot. Now you're gonna go down and you're gonna hit that camera button again. Listen to it, it's taking the 3 shots again. Okay, if you have a look at your screen, you're gonna see that it's got 2 of the 3 done. Now, as we're going through this, you may wanna remember we minimize the map, you may wanna maximize the map, and make sure it's scanning right now. It's doing a laser scan, and because we already auto mapped the property, it's fitting the new laser scan where it fits in the big map. And it looks good, it's all green. But you may notice that it turns red if it does get confused. And remember, just like before, when we moved a scan that was misaligned, we can move a scan if it comes up misaligned, okay? So we're turning the camera to its next spot. Okay, I'm just gonna minimize this so that I can see what the camera's doing. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit that camera button. Okay, now I've got 3 HDR pictures, okay? 3 shots for each. times 3 different angles. That can go together to make a 360-degree panorama. When I look at how it is on my screen, it's perfectly aligned with the floor plan. Now I'm ready to move on to another panorama. How I do that, I hit that +1. Remember, every time you've got all 3 combining together into a panorama. Now you hit +1, okay? Now you're ready to move the camera to your next spot. I'm just gonna do one, maybe not quite in the middle of this room, maybe a little bit offset in the corner, okay? Now I can see that from where I took my last panorama, when I'm standing there, okay, I'm going to be able to see that spot in the virtual tour, okay? So imagine the user at home, they're in this spot and they can click on that next spot now to get to the next panorama, okay? Using the base of the camera just to move it, make sure that it's in one of its little click-in spots, okay? And now I'm hitting the camera button. Here it's going, 1, 2, 3, okay? Now we're done. I might have a little peek at that map. Yeah, everything is lining up fine. Now I'm gonna turn it, very light hand here, okay? And remembering to turn it clockwise, and then you'll feel it just click into the next position. I'm gonna show you what happens if you don't turn it clockwise. Let's say by accident you turned it the wrong way. Okay, so we've turned it the wrong way, and I hit the camera button like I'm taking my next picture. Okay, it's gone ahead and taken them, but now I've got an error message, wrong direction of camera rotation. Okay, it recognized that something was wrong. And if I have a peek at the map, it's put the map in the completely wrong place, okay, the current scan. Now, I'm gonna show you 2 things. I'm going to show you if this happened for some other reason, how to move that panel so that it lines up. So we're going to hit the move button. Now we're not moving the scan. The scan is what we're currently scanning, and that's green. But the last panel, it's in the wrong place. So I'm going to hit move under panel. Now you can see that that scan that we just took, the one that doesn't fit in with the floor plan, it's turned yellow. And now I can rotate it and I can move it into place. Now because I rotated my camera the wrong way, it's the wrong shape and it's combined with the previous laser scan and it's completely messed up, okay? So what do we do now? It's messed up. I'm gonna show you how to recover. We turned our camera the wrong way. Minimize your map again. Now click on the last panel, the one that we took in the wrong direction. And what we're gonna do is we're going to turn our camera to where it should have been, and when you click on that there, when you click on the panel that's already done, and then you go to make a new picture, and you hit that camera button, it's going to ask you, do you want to overwrite because you're redoing it? Well, we did it wrong, so let's say, okay, rewrite it. We're redoing that photo, okay? And now when we open up our map and we see where our panorama scan fits into our auto map that we did earlier, it fits in perfectly. Now everything makes sense. We can minimize that again. We're back on track. We can turn the camera again to its next spot. Okay, turn the camera to its next spot and hit the camera button to take our final panorama, our final shot. You can keep checking that map if you want to make sure that it's clean. Remember, it's not the end of the world if things don't line up. You can turn one by using the panel move button. You can turn what it's currently scanning by using the scan move button. Or worst case scenario, you can line everything up after the fact when you get back to the office. There's another button on your screen that I want to show you how to use. This is the button that if you want to take a picture that you want to use later as a still, okay? So for me, I want a picture from this angle of this kitchen. I'm going to use that later as a still picture. Now, it may not make sense for me to have a 360 here because as I turn the camera, you see it's mostly just going to be right up against the wall. But for my still picture, I really want a picture from this angle, okay? When you're looking at your screen, remember that to shoot panels, we've been hitting the button that has an icon that looks like a camera. There's another button, it's a circle, it kind of looks like a shutter, okay? It's a segmented circle. That is just to take one photo, one HDR photo. So it's gonna take 3 photos, but then you're not going to turn the camera around and it's not going to be turned into part of your virtual tour. It's just going to be available later on as a single photo that you might edit and use as a still photo. So I'm going to go ahead and get my great kitchen shot, and it's not going to be part of my virtual plan because I'm not hitting the camera button, I'm hitting the shutter button. Listen what happens. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I've got my 3 HDR shots, and now I can use that later. I can rest assured that it's going to be recorded onto that thumb drive, and when I plug it into my computer later, it's going to be available to edit and get a still shot. Now, it's up to you if you want to use this button, the shutter button, to get the angles that you want for all of your still shots. I will oftentimes just go ahead and shoot a full panel just so that I have more information. When you're building your virtual tour, you can choose to exclude some of the panels if it's too many. You can exclude some of the 360s, okay? So I might have gone ahead and just shot that as an ordinary 360 and done all 3. But if you're in a hurry, sometimes you might just need like 5 or 6 spots, and then you might... I've shot all of the panoramas on this floor. Before I did that, I made an auto map. Now I've got all these great 360s, each of them fitting perfectly into the map. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna move up to the second floor. Now what I do for this is we start the process all over. We're gonna make an auto map upstairs, and then we're gonna do each of the panels throughout that area. In my survey program on the iPad, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to floor, and I'm gonna add in a new floor name, or I'll probably just choose second floor. I'm gonna set the wall thickness. That hasn't changed. It's 7.5 inches for this house. Remember, we measured the exterior wall thickness, and it is gonna be above grade. So I'm gonna toggle it to above grade so that it gets included in the square footage for this property. And then I'm gonna say create, okay? Now we've created a whole new floor plan, and we can go ahead and move upstairs. I'm gonna turn off the laser while I move upstairs. Once I get upstairs, I'm gonna turn on the laser, set it to auto map, walk around slowly and build that map, and then I'm gonna switch the laser back to track mode, and I'm gonna start moving from spot to spot, taking the panoramas by moving the camera through the 3 positions and taking 3 HDR shots at each one. In the end, once we've done all of the floors, auto mapping and taking our panels, we're gonna lock up, go home, and we're gonna do the final processing on our computer. Okay, I'm outside, I'm getting my exterior shot. We do need an exterior shot, and probably one at the back too. Just like I did in the kitchen, I'm only gonna do one angle, so I'm not gonna shoot a full panorama. So I'm gonna set my camera up with the angle that I like, not worrying about the laser. I actually shut the laser off already because we're not doing any mapping out here. Remember, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit the shutter button. Pardon, it's a bit windy out here. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm gonna hit the shutter button. And if you listen very carefully, that camera is taking its 3 HDR shots. Later on, we can use post-processing to get a good exterior shot from that.